Hi everybody, and thank you very much for joining us for one of our online presentations today. And today we're going to be looking at travelling by sleeper train with Railbookers. So thanks very much for tuning in. My name is Anna Davis. I'll be your host for our session today. I'm the marketing manager here for Railbookers and Amtrak Vacations. I'm going to take you through 5 of our most popular holidays that include travelling overnight on the train. So without further ado, we will make a start. What I will say is that you do have the option to ask questions on your screen there. So even though you're listening or watching on demand, if you do have any questions at all, you can ask those and one of the team will come back to you. You do also have the option to the right of your screen to download a number of resources, and we'll touch on that in a moment. So do just take a few minutes to have a look at the various options on your screen. For those of you who are perhaps new to these presentations, new to the world of Railbookers, I'll just spend a few moments just giving you a bit of a background, a bit of an outline about our holidays and what makes us a little bit different. So we've been creating these independent holidays by rail for a long time now. We have a lot of expertise in terms of the best routes, best timings to ensure the very best holiday for you. We can also book up to 2 years in advance, so now taking bookings all the way through to March 2024, guaranteed with just a small deposit. As we go through the presentation today, I'll touch on flexibility a lot and the options to really tailor, customize, put in lots of different options to suit exactly what you're looking to do, where you're looking to visit and how. So if you see any of the itineraries today on this presentation, on our website, in our brochures, they are really just there as a suggestion, but they can be changed in any number of ways, adding in extra nights, extra destinations, upgrading the hotel to 5-star, perhaps upgrading the train accommodation as well, adding rail from your local UK station, also possible. So lots of ways in which we can tailor that trip specifically to you. And really our motto is, if the train goes there, so do we. Now, I mentioned on the screen in front of you there to the right-hand side, you should be able to see a number of resources that you can download, including links to our digital brochures. So we have a range of digital brochures on our website that you can access, from our worldwide one specifically to luxury rail journeys, Scotland, UK and Ireland, lots of different titles there for you to download. And Start Trip Planning has a great map in the front of that, just to give you an idea of some of the range of destinations you can travel to with Railbookers, and a really great place to start if you're planning a trip for this year or perhaps next. Now, I mentioned that our tours our holidays are independent. You're not traveling as part of a group tour. There is no tour leader on the trip, but that doesn't mean you're entirely alone when you travel. So we do have global locations here as where our staff are based. So there's always somebody available across the Railbookers team should you need our assistance whilst you are traveling, should you need any help whilst you're away. And lastly, before we delve into some of those fantastic trips, I just wanted to mention these are some of the rail partners that we work with around the world, not an exhaustive list, but we work with these rail partners, as I've mentioned, to book up to 2 years in advance. So not only taking care of the rail tickets and the rail journeys, but also making it very much a one-stop shop for you, booking your hotel accommodation, excursions, sightseeing, transfers, flights in some cases, and we'll touch on that in the presentation today as well. So without further ado, let's move into talking about sleeper trains. So we have seen customers really interested in experiencing travel overnight by train. It's a really special way to travel, and we've got a range of different sleeper trains to share with you today. The first is the Caledonian Sleeper, and we have a huge number of holidays now that incorporate Caledonian Sleeper up to Scotland. Picked the Grand Tour of Scotland today to talk you through and talk about the Caledonian Sleeper specifically. So this is a 10-day holiday. It's a starting price of £1,249. And the itinerary will take you from London overnight on the Caledonian Sleeper up to Inverness. You have a 2-night stay in Inverness, and whilst you're there, you have a full day trip over to the Isle of Skye. You'll then travel back further south and travel up to Fort William. for a 2-night stay, and whilst you're in Fort William, you'll do a day trip on the West Highland Line between Fort William and Mallaig on the Jacobite steam train. Then you'll travel to Glasgow for 2 nights and have time to explore the city before then completing your trip with a 2-night stay in Edinburgh. So this holiday, a really good example of lots of Railbookers trips actually that incorporate iconic city stays, some really iconic rail experiences here with the Caledonian Sleeper and the Jacobite in one trip, and also some really spectacular scenery and open spaces in the Highlands, the Isle of Skye here. And we do incorporate a lot of excursions and sightseeing. So you'll also see that this trip includes a day trip out to Lomond and Stirling Castle as well. So lots included. We have a look at the overnight sleeper experience then, and you're travelling here on the Caledonian Sleeper, which was essentially a brand new train in 2019-2020. So it's been fully refurbished throughout, and you've got a number of different options on board in terms of your accommodation choices. There is the classic room, the club room, and the Caledonian Double in terms of sleeping accommodation. So the classic room and the club, exactly the same in terms of the bed and the sleeping accommodation itself, the upper and the lower berth. With a club room, though, you do have fully ensuite facilities as well. With the classic, you just have the basin there in the room, but really, really comfortable. And you can also use the lounge car, which we'll talk about in a minute. The other special thing that the Caledonian Sleeper has is the Caledonian Double. Now, there are not many trains left running overnight that have a full-size double bed. The Caledonian Sleeper is one of them, and you'll find 2 Caledonian Double cabins on each of the Caledonian Sleeper departures. Full-size double bed, fully ensuite facilities, and again, you have the option to eat in the lounge car. Can also be served in your cabin if you prefer to eat that way. So on board, as I say, the Caledonian lounge car, really, really lovely place to spend a few hours, freshly cooked food with a real seasonal Scottish flair. So typically some salmon often on the menu. And it's a fully stocked bar as well. So lots of refreshments and a number of single malts to accompany you north of the border. So on this particular journey, you'll take the route up to Inverness. Caledonian Sleeper does have 2 branches, but on this one, you're going up to Inverness. And you're based in Inverness for a 2-night stay. A great base to explore the wider area. If you're travelling between April and October, you get a hop-on, hop-off town pass as well, so that you can travel around the area and get your bearings as well. Lots to explore. There is Inverness Castle. There's a fantastic art museum there as well. And just a lovely place to be as part of your 2-night stay. Whilst you're there, you will stay in the Kingsmill Hotel here. I always think it's nice to see the sorts of accommodation that you can expect when you travel with us. And the Kingsmill in Inverness, based on the edge of the Inverness Golf Course, so really lovely location, nice and peaceful, family-run establishment, has a restaurant on site as well if you prefer to eat in the hotel. So whilst you're in Inverness, you will do this full day trip that will take you over to Eilean-Donan Castle and then over to Skye. I think Eilean-Donan now is the officially most photographed castle in all of Scotland, and it's beautifully located where 2 locks meet. So really spectacular setting for this castle that dates back and has been, I think, lived in since the 13th century and seen plenty of history in its time. You'll also then, when you've moved around to Fort William, you'll have a journey on this, the Jacobite steam train, arguably one of the most spectacular trains in the world, known as the Hogwarts Express now from the Harry Potter films, of course. But here it is crossing the Glenfinnan Viaduct, and it travels along the West Highland Line. If you're travelling with us again between April and October, then this holiday will include travelling on the steam train itself. If you're travelling outside of those times, you'll still travel on the route, the same scenery, but not on the Jacobite steam train because it is a seasonal service. It's an 84-mile round trip from Fort William up to Mallaig, and you have a couple of hours once you've reached Mallaig in this charming coastal setting before you then travel back down to Fort William. So that's the grand tour of Scotland using the Caledonian Sleeper. I'm going to take you slightly further afield now by sleeper train and take you to Sicily. So this is a 9-day trip with a starting price of £1,399. We've recently launched a number of additional holidays to Sicily that include the culinary tour of Sicily as well. So lots of different things we can incorporate into a Sicilian trip if this is of interest to you. Let me talk you through the itinerary then. So this will start on the Eurostar from London to Paris, and you'll travel down then from Paris to Milan on the daytime high-speed services. You have a one-night stay in Milan before then taking the following day a sleeper train from Milan down to Taormina. Now, this is a really interesting overnight experience because the train itself travels on the ferry across the Straits of Messina over to Sicily itself. So a really unique way to travel, not only by sleeper train, but also on a sleeper train on a ferry. You'll then have 2 nights, respectively, in Taormina, Catania, and Palermo before you then fly back to the UK, or alternatively, you can take the rail option up via Naples and then back through Italy and France on to the Eurostar to come home. So probably a good opportunity for me to mention that a lot of customers typically choose to train out, to take rail from your local UK station to the destination, explore by rail, and then fly back. That's a really common combination. Equally, though, you can rail in both directions and take the train throughout. Or indeed, you could fly into a destination, experience the destination by train, and fly home. So again, lots of flexibility, and all of these itineraries can really be flexed to suit exactly what you're looking to do. So you do, as I mentioned, have a one-night stay in Milan with, of course, the famous Gothic Duomo. There's some beautiful parts of Milan to explore and some fantastic restaurants as well. I sometimes think it's slightly overlooked as an Italian city destination. Obviously has a reputation from the fashion industry, quite a business city historically, but it's a great place to spend a few nights here. And then you'll take the overnight train from Milan down to Taormina. So just wanted to show you here, this is the double cabin. So on the right-hand side is what it will look like when you first board the train. So you've got these comfortable seats here with the unit there with the handle that has your wash basin and some towels there for your use whilst you travel. And then the cabin will then be converted into the upper and lower berth that you see on the left-hand side there for your overnight journey. There aren't necessarily any meals. There aren't any meals served on this train, but you can, of course, one of the great benefits of traveling by train is that you can take your own bits and pieces on with you. So plenty of places around Milan Central Station to pick up some refreshments and snacks for your journey and then take on to enjoy in your cabin. So you'll then travel over through the Straits of Messina on the train, on the ferry, to reach then Taormina with all of its spectacular history, amphitheatres, and beautifully located, of course, right by the sea there, as you can see from that picture there. So lots of different options through Sicily, as I mentioned, to take part in. If food is a particular interest of yours, there are options to do sightseeing tours, excursions with local guides to visit local markets, and to enjoy culinary courses and to, of course, eat the food that you prepare as well. So do speak to us about that, because all of our experiences, all of the sightseeing can also be entirely tailored to your areas of interest, and yeah, absolutely, and also private tours available as well, is what I wanted to mention. So you can do these as a small group tour. If you wanted to be traveling only with your traveling companions, that can also be arranged. So that's visiting Sicily by sleeper train. Next, staying in Europe, but wanted to mention this itinerary. This is our Venice and Vienna by the Alps. So this is a 6-day holiday with a starting price of £1,279. Let me talk you through this itinerary, because it's a really great one that combines lots of different experiences. So you'll first of all travel on Eurostar from London to Paris, and from Paris directly to Lausanne on the high-speed TGV service through France onto the border of Switzerland. You'll have a one-night stay in Lausanne, beautiful lakeside setting, before you then travel along the Simplon Pass, the historic routing of the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express, to Milan. You'll change in Milan to then travel to Venice. That's a really common route via the Alps routing, either through Lausanne or Geneva, to reach Milan and then on to any number of Italian cities. You'll have a 2-night stay in Venice before then traveling up to Vienna. That's also a day trip, on a day service, sorry, I should say. You'll have a 2-night stay in Vienna. We include the Vienna Pass so that you have access to all of the major historical sites, the monuments, the museums. You can also go out to Schönbrunn Palace, for example, lots to see and do there. And then to travel home, you'll travel on the overnight sleeper. So you'll travel from Vienna through to Cologne on the overnight sleeper, and then travel on to Brussels to pick up the Eurostar from Brussels this time to travel back to the UK. So again, incorporating some spectacular scenery, some lovely city stays, and also an overnight journey between Vienna to come home via Cologne. So Lausanne, as I say, beautifully located right on the lake. You've got the Olympic Museum there, amongst other things, but some great restaurants and bars right down on the lakeside to enjoy a few hours in the summer sun. And then you'll also stay in Vienna. As I mentioned, we have the Vienna City Pass, and we include that in all of our Viennese trips so that you can make the use of all of the fantastic things to do there. Of course, don't forget to stop for some Sachertorte as well. And the cafe culture in Vienna is fantastic. It's a fantastic place to sit and while away the hours whilst doing a good amount of people watching from one of the many, many cafes throughout the city. And then just wanted to share with you this. This is the night jet, which will take you back to Cologne from Vienna. It serves a number of European routes now, the night jet services, but this is an example of one of the cabins, and typically the cabins that our customers sleep in. So you can see there top left, breakfast being served, and you have the seating there, but then for the evening, then they're converted into an upper and lower berth there. There are also different types of accommodation here. So there are cabins that sleep 4 or 6 if you're traveling as part of a larger group, perhaps with grandchildren and a wider family. And they can also accommodate single travelers as well. So you can create solo occupancy if you are traveling as a solo customer too. Now, in terms of an overnight train experience and the sleeper train extraordinaire, wanted to mention the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express. And here going to talk you through one of the many itineraries that we have that includes the Orient Express with other elements, here combining it with the Glacier Express and the Bernina Express. So arguably probably the most famous train in the world, and with a really impressive experience on board, really traveling back to a golden age of travel, traveling back in time for sure. This is a 9-day holiday with a starting price of £5,279. Now, there are currently a few changes to the way the Orient Express is operating at the beginning of the journey here. So you will start by traveling from London to Paris on the Eurostar rather than on the historic Pullman carriages for now. That's just a temporary change. So you'll travel on board Eurostar from London to Paris, and then you will catch the historic cabins, the cabins that you'll be familiar with, the train itself from Paris through to Venice on those Orient Express 1920s Pullman style sets. You'll travel and have time for afternoon tea on board, plenty of time to relax in your cabin before you then change for dinner. And we'll have a look at the onboard experience shortly. You'll travel through dinner, so you'll go to the dinner lounge for your 4-course meal. Time to relax in the lounge car afterwards as well. And then you'll sleep in the twin cabin typically overnight, although a number of accommodation options included, and I'll share those with you in a moment. You'll then travel through the Swiss Alps the following morning, breakfast served in your cabin. You'll have time for lunch on board before you then cross the Venetian Lagoon into Venice Santa Lucia station, arguably one of the most impressive arrival points in the world by train. And then you'll have 3 nights in Venice before we then combine that with some really great additional rail experiences. So traveling back through Switzerland on this one, first of all taking the Bernina Express from Tirano up to St. Moritz, and then also the Glacier Express through to Zermatt as well. And you have a 2-night stay in Zermatt, including a day trip out to the Gorner Grat mountain as well. So, and then you'll travel back to Zurich with the option then to either fly back from Zurich to your local airport or indeed to take the rail option, which is a really straightforward route as well. That's Zurich to Paris on direct TGV service, and then Paris back to London on Eurostar. So lots going on in this itinerary, and let me just share with you some fantastic images of the Orient Express so you can see what it's like on board. So this is one of the famous shots of the bar car, also called the blue car as well, and I think here there's another view of it. So really the social hub of the train, the lounge car. It's where people congregate for pre-dinner drinks, for perhaps a coffee, tea in the afternoon, and also a nightcap after dinner, often live music being played on the piano there, and a really lovely way to while away a few hours whilst you travel on your way to Venice. When you join the train in Paris, this is what your twin cabin will look like. So set up for the daytime, that banquette seating to the left, and you'll have, as I say, a few hours to relax in the cabin before changing for dinner and going to the lounge car perhaps for a pre-dinner drink before enjoying your evening meal. You do have the option also to upgrade to additional types of accommodation, and there is the Grand Suite option on the Orient Express as well, which is a full-size double bed. It's the only accommodation type on board the Orient Express that has fully en suite service as well. You do have a butler that will look after you throughout. You can have your meals served in the cabin as well if you prefer, and you can see there you've got the sofa and seating as well to enjoy in your suite cabin. So that's also another option to consider. But do give us a call if you'd like to talk through any of the accommodation types in more detail. We can tell you what's included and what your options are. So you'll then just you'll then, as I mentioned, just enjoy some additional experiences traveling through Switzerland. So first of all on the Bernina Express, but then you'll also travel on the Glacier Express. And I just wanted to mention here, you do have the option if perhaps you're traveling for a special occasion, a special birthday, missed anniversary perhaps from the last couple of years. Why not consider upgrading on board the Glacier Express to Excellence Class? As you can see here on the image there, every seat is a window seat. Everybody has those fantastic views. You have a 5-course meal served as you travel through the full 8-hour route from St. Moritz to Zermatt, and a really special way to travel with access to the Glacier bar at the back. Really, really great service with those magnificent views as you travel. So again, if you'd like any more information on that, please do get in touch and we'll be happy to give you more information. Now, in terms of Sleeper Train, I'm going to take you further afield again now and look at our Amtrak options traveling overnight through America. So through our sister brand, Amtrak Vacations, we have access to all of the just over 500 stations across the Amtrak network, and wanted to talk you through this fantastic trip, our Great American Majestic Landscapes, which will take you from New York through to San Francisco. And part of that journey will be on arguably the most iconic route of them all on the Amtrak network, the California ZEPHYR. So you will have a 2-night stay in New York, first of all, before traveling overnight on the Amtrak service to Chicago. You have a 2-night stay in the Windy City there, and will include a city pass for Chicago, which gets you into many of the top attractions, like the Skydeck, for example. And then you will then board at Chicago Union Station onto the California ZEPHYR route, which will take you through all the way to California. You'll first of all travel one night to Denver, have a 2-night stay in Denver, and whilst you're there, we have a sightseeing tour of the Rocky Mountain National Park. And you'll then board the train again to travel down to San Francisco. And whilst you're in San Francisco, we have the sightseeing tour of Napa and Sonoma on the Napa Valley Wine Train as well. So some great options here to experience traveling overnight by train in the States. So really a city that needs no introduction, New York. We do include a number of passes and sightseeing included as standard with New York. So you have the hop on, hop off and the New York City Pass as well, which again is going to get you into pretty much all of the major places you're going to want to visit. Also bear in mind, again, if you want to spend longer in any of these destinations, then we can absolutely extend the stay so that you have more time in any of these towns and cities. If there's something particularly that you want to stay longer for, that can absolutely be accommodated. And also bear in mind that we can, in most of the towns and cities that we offer, give you a range of hotel accommodation as well. So whether you're looking for 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, if you want to vary it throughout the trip, all of that very much a possibility. So do bear that in mind again as you're looking through the itineraries. When you're in Chicago, you have a 2-night stay here, so plenty of time to visit things like the Sky Deck, for example, for unparalleled views over the city. You do also have additional excursions that you can add in, and one of the things I would highly recommend is doing the architecture river cruise whilst you're there. It's about an hour along the river, through the really taking you through the history of the architecture in Chicago, obviously famous for its skyscrapers, but the commentary on there was really exceptional when I did it a few years ago, and always great, I think, to see a city from the water. It gives you a completely different perspective. So I would highly recommend adding that on to any of the trips of ours that include Chicago. So you'll then travel on the mighty California ZEPHYR that will take you through from Chicago all the way through to San Francisco, through the Red Rocks, through the national park, of the Rocky National Park, really contrasting scenery through the Sierra Nevadas. And that's the beautiful thing, I think, about traveling, particularly on Amtrak, is when you travel through so many states, the scenery really is ever changing. And it's often with Amtrak really views that you can only see by taking the train, actually. And of course, unlike a road trip, everybody in the party gets to enjoy the scenery as you go. And we'll have a look at the onboard experience in a moment. When you're in Denver, you have a full day with a guide visiting the Rocky Mountain National Park with lunch included. So really great opportunity to get up close to some of the wildlife there, to travel up to some of the higher points for fantastic vantage views of the national park itself. And then you'll finish the trip in San Francisco. So you have a suggested 2-night stay in San Francisco, but again, if you wanted to extend that, so you have extra time perhaps to do a day trip out to Yosemite, for example, that's something that we do very often for customers when they're staying in San Francisco. But as I mentioned, you do also have the Napa and Sonoma wine tour whilst you're in San Francisco, a really great excursion, a really great day. We'll travel between a number of some of the most famous vineyards there by train. So again, everybody can enjoy a few glasses and taste away whilst you enjoy some fantastic lunch and food on board in that train. So a really, really good day trip out, and really comes back highly regarded when customers have experienced it. So let me share with you the onboard experience for Amtrak here, and we'll just go through the various accommodation types you have available to choose from. So first of all, starting with coach, the option really that has great for budget, is very comfortable, similar to traveling on a first class airline seat. The seats recline, you do have power sockets, and you do have an area above for your luggage to be stored. You can also make use of the onboard snack bar, and you have staff available to help and look after you whilst you travel there. Vast majority of our customers, though, will choose one of the sleeping accommodation types, and there are 2 on board Amtrak. First of all, there is the roomette here, which is for 2 people. You have the armchairs facing each other there in the private cabin that you can see on the screen. And during the evening, whilst you're enjoying your evening meal in the dining car, your attendant will convert that roomette into the upper and lower berth that you see on the screen there. There are shared facilities, if you can just see on that picture slightly further down the cabin, the door ajar. That's where the shared facilities are, with the toilet and the basin, and you do also have showers on the lower level as well. Really, really well maintained. You also have coffee and water facilities at the end of the carriage as well. So that's the roomette. If you're looking for fully en-suite facilities, then the bedroom is the sleeping accommodation of choice here. So you can see here, ready for the evening, you've still got the upper and lower berth there, but the lower berth is significantly wider, more space there, and you do have a bigger cabin overall. So there is an armchair that stays in position for the overnight part of the journey as well. And it does have, as I mentioned, fully en-suite facilities. So you've got shower, toilet and wash basin included in your own private cabin. And during the daytime, that armchair stays as it is on the left, and you've also got a wider sort of sofa seat on the right-hand side whilst you travel. few other things just to share of the onboard experience. Everyone can make use of this, the observation carriage, available whether you're traveling in coach, roomette, or bedroom. Great for a change of scene as you travel through those fantastic landscapes. And you do also have the dining car, as I mentioned. So a great benefit if you're choosing to travel in a roomette or a bedroom is that you have all of your meals included in the dining car, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I personally vouch for the great food that they serve, pancakes for breakfast, steak for dinner particularly, but a wide range of food offered, taking care of any dietary requirements, of course, and a really great way to socialise with some of your fellow passengers as well. And there's always a really good mixture of people from all over the world. It was surprising to see who is travelling on board Amtrak on the journey. So again, a great social hub of the train. So thank you very much for joining me for that whistle-stop tour of some of our sleeper trains available with Railbookers. Hope you found it helpful. As I mentioned, you do have the option to ask questions, request a call back from one of our team, and to download some of our brochures and supporting material there on the screen. So do have a look at that. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks very much for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.